Well, I'm glad that everyone made it here this morning. I had a tough time. It was tough for me to get up this morning. I tossed and turned all night because I had some problems and some worries. I hope you did not. Now, it was just hard falling asleep. It was hard getting up. And I know that as Unity people, we're not supposed to worry too much. We're supposed to remember the lilies of the field and how they neither sow nor reap. We're supposed to let go and let God. But every once in a while, I find that I'm human. That's the way it is. I worry about, well, Thanksgiving's over, I got through that, but now the kids are coming over. Got to cook leftovers for them, I hope it comes out all right. Got to think about Christmas parties. I don't have anything to wear, for goodness sakes. I got to do Christmas cards. You know, there are several people I'm dropping off the list this year. You know who you are. Then I got to worry about Christmas presents. Worries, worries, worries. Wouldn't it be great if we could just let go of our problems and our worries and fall asleep, and then in the morning have some of our problems resolved? There's a story about Edgar Cayce. He was called the Sleeping Prophet. I have not found any confirmation, any outside authority about this story, but the story goes that as a young student, Edgar Cayce could learn by falling asleep with his head resting on the books, and the knowledge from the books would transfer to his brain. As I say, I couldn't find any outside confirmation of this. I can tell you that Frank tried this in college during English class a couple of times, and he can confirm that it doesn't work for everyone. As a matter of fact, I would guess that most people would dismiss this notion in its entirety, wholeheartedly, wholesale. Solving problems while you're asleep. You must be dreaming. Well, maybe. This morning I want to expand a little bit on a talk that Terry gave on dreams. Terry did a brilliant job of telling us about the preeminent position of dreams in the Bible. The Bible is replete with stories about dreams, usually about warnings or inspiration to people. In the Bible, it also points out that some dreams are not quite so direct. It takes some talented people, such as Joseph or Daniel in the Old Testament, to interpret those dreams. And also in the Bible, there are a few instances where dreams helped people solve problems. How much should I give back to God? Which way should I go? These were questions where dreams answered those problems. And problems were also answered in dreams according to many other religious traditions, particularly in our Native American traditions. Dreams have always been important in religion. The Roman Empire and Western civilization was converted to Christianity as a result of a dream that the Emperor Constantine had right before a battle. Now, luckily for us, no one told Constantine that Jesus was the Prince of Peace, or otherwise we'd be worried about Saturnalia next month. But I thought that I would also explore what science has to say about dreams. Now, ever since Sigmund Freud, dreams have been interpreted in psychotherapy sessions. It's still not an exact science. As a matter of fact, I had a recurring dream that I was curious about. How many of us have recurring dreams? A little over half. My recurring dream is that I'm walking on air. I'm not flying really, I'm just kind of walking, sometimes climbing up. So I thought I would Google it and see what that meant. And nobody's really sure. It could mean that I'm confident, maybe overconfident. It could mean that I'm out of touch with reality. It could mean that I feel trapped. Or it could be that I'm just trying to overcome the trauma of an unpleasant birth experience. I decided I didn't really want to know. So I pondered what other areas of dreams that science was exploring. And chiefly there are two. The first area that science is currently looking into is trying to coach people on how to control their dreams. And they're using this in conjunction with people who might have a mental illness, they might simply have night terrors, or they might have PTSD. And that work it's important and it's good work, and they're making some progress with that. That's a good thing. The second area that they're looking at in science is, surprisingly, using dreams as a mechanism to solve problems. Now, as I was looking at this, I was thinking that those two areas go hand in hand. To solve problems in your dreams, I think you need to control them to an extent, and vice versa. Well, Dr. Deidre Barrett, Dr. Deidre Barrett, research psychologist at Harvard University. That's a pretty good school. That was Frank and my safety school. Dr. Barrett thinks that not only can we control dreams, but we can induce vivid dreams, lucid dreams, that will help us solve problems. And in that regard, she devised a study. It was a week-long study that she reported on in Scientific American. In the study, just a week long, mind you, by going through a short protocol, 50% of the participants actually managed to dream about the problems that they were targeting, and 25% managed to actually come up with solutions through their dreams. Now, I'll grant you, those numbers are not overwhelming, but they are significant. If we could go to sleep and have 25% of our problems resolved by the morning, well, that'd give us a leg up during the next day, wouldn't it? So, I was thinking that not only is this significant, but it's also buttressing some of the stories that we've already heard about people whose problems are resolved in their dreams. I have a list of 10 different people that you may have heard of who had their problems resolved during their dreams. Now, we don't have time to go through all 10, so I'll just go through 9. The first one is Mary Shelley, the author. She and Lord Byron were snowbound in a cabin one time. To pass the time away, Lord Byron suggested that they have a little contest. Whoever wrote the scariest story would win the contest. Well, Lord Byron started right away. He was outlining his story, and Mary Shelley had nothing. She came up blank. Well, she went to sleep. She had a dream, and the next morning she outlined her story. It won the contest. That story was Frankenstein. You might have heard of it. Another person, Elias Howe, the inventor of the sewing machine. He could not envision how a needle would work in a sewing machine. How would you thread it? How would it keep threaded? The answer came to him in the dream. Then there was August Kekule. His experiments were flopping. He didn't know why. Then he had a dream, and in that dream he saw the benzene molecule as a ring. All the other carbon molecules were a straight line. So the invention of the benzene ring theory emanated through that dream. Another person with a scary story used it as an inspiration. Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde based on his dream. The next three people all dreamed up Nobel Prizes for themselves. Fred Banting dreamed that insulin might treat diabetes. Otto Loewi had a dream in which he envisioned that nerve impulses originated chemically, not electrically. Various parts of the theory of relativity came to Albert Einstein during a dream, who, by the way, started the whole darn thing on a daydream. Then there was Niels Bohr. His dream showed him the atomic structure with electrons orbiting around a nucleus. And finally, there was a songwriter who got a melody during a dream. He thought he must have heard of it somewhere else. It sounded so familiar to him. So he went around to the rest of the music industry saying, "Have you heard this? Have you heard this?" Made a pest of himself, humming it to everybody. Nobody had heard of it. So what happened is Paul McCartney wrote it down and called it Yesterday. So these are just some of the people that we know about who had problems solved during their dreams. Just as the Bible had people who had problems solved during their dreams. Now what I think is that some of you might be sleeping geniuses in your own right. Just a little bit of help with Dr. Barrett's protocol might be the spark that you need. And the protocol is pretty simple. There's only 4 steps to it. I'll let you be the judge of how hard this would be for you to give it a try. The first step is to lie in bed and relax. I know you can do that. Jane's been doing it ever since I started to talk. She's well ahead of the curve. The second step is to think of your problem, and if at all possible, to conjure up an image of that problem, because they're finding that images of the problem are much more vivid than a word problem. The third step, when you awake, see, we've already gotten through the night. When you're awake, just lie there in bed for a few minutes and try to remember your dream. You might keep a little pad of paper and a pencil to write it down before it fades away. And the fourth and final step is, if you do not remember your dream, then try to feel an emotion. And that emotion may link you to the substance of your dream. Those are the 4 steps that Dr. Barrett recommends for her protocol. Now, if that sounds a little bit familiar to some of us that are in unity, you're not wrong. This whole protocol rests on the assumption, it is predicated unknowingly, I'm sure, on the fact that thoughts in the mind go after their kind, which is the shorthand expression of one of Unity's principles. Moreover, in the 12 Powers of Man, Charles Fillmore pointed out that in the imagination, the mind often thinks in images rather than words, because words are nearly always inadequate, particularly at the start of the process. And I would keep that in mind, and I'd also modify Dr. Barrett's protocol in one small way. I would insert the phrase and the action. Let go and let God. We're all familiar with that. I think that by inserting that into the process, we'll amplify each one of Dr. Barrett's steps, and I'll bet that the results mushroom. So in conclusion, kids, you can try this at home. Nothing bad is going to happen. You can't lose with the stuff we use. I'm going to hand out, well, I'll leave it in a pile, and anyone who is interested can take a copy of the protocol that I've modified a little bit and try it at home. Go ahead, give it a try. Utilize your knowledge and give God room to give you a helping hand. You and God would make a wonderful team. Sweet dreams.